5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Indie Wrestling Experience, where we discuss all things related to the Indie Wrestling Experience. I am Bob Richards, I am your host, and we've got a pretty interesting show for you today. Lots of stuff to cover. There is a new MLW Featherweight Champion in Delmi Exo. This is her second time as MLW Champion. We'll get into that match that just occurred recently later in the program. Also, we will be highlighting our YouTube recommendation of the week, which is Fourth Rope Wrestling Heels Have Eyes 3 from November 2nd, 2024. I will preview that show and then go let you watch it by yourself. Also, we've got Rich Buchholtz back to preview Redemption, which is coming up in just less than 2 weeks now on January 25th. And Rich will be back to finalize that card and go over all the details for that show so you don't miss it if you want to be there. Rich will also talk about the other two shows that are coming up after that, Homecoming, May 31st, and Destiny, which is September 27th. The Destiny card is packed. We've talked about it a little bit before, but Rich is going to tell us some more about that today as well. And as always, we will be talking about our new champions from the weekend. There are a few, and several of them are close to the heart of Indie Wrestling Experience, as we've covered them numerous times. And we'll also preview what is coming up this weekend. As always, make sure you check out Indie Wrestling Experience everywhere on social. You can find us on Linktree. That's the best place to find everywhere else. But we are Indie Wrestling Experience, all one word, on Instagram. We're Indie Wrestling XP on Twitter and on Blue Sky, I believe. And we are, it's Indie Wrestling Experience on Facebook as well. You can catch this podcast on Podbean and pretty much anywhere else you normally get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. So check us out there. Trying to get this thing going a little bit. First, today, before we get into anything else that I just listed, I want to talk about a show that I watched this weekend, and that would be Focus Pro Wrestling's Larger Than Life. Anybody who has followed Indie Wrestling Experience, the blog, the rankings, anything like that, you know I've been watching Focus Pro for a while. They are a promotion that runs a very interesting show. There's intergender matches, there's comedy matches, but the big title matches are no joke. There is great wrestling. It's just an all-around great product that they put on. It's an entertaining product. They do it at normally they do it, I think it's called Widowmaker Brewery in Massachusetts. That's where this show was supposed to take place, but then at the last minute it got moved to Barrel House Z, which is in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Also turned out to be a great venue. I watched this show there, and it was perfect. The crowd was on fire. The show was on IWTV this past weekend. It has been uploaded to IWTV's video on demand, so you can go there and catch it there, as well as any of other Focus Pros shows from before that. On this card, let's go over the card here. So the first match on this card was Seabass Finn in a loss to Diego Alvarez. Diego Alvarez is a guy that we've had listed as our number one contender to the Focus Pro Championship for a little while now. Mani Ariez did just win the Focus Pro title from Tyree Taylor. Desmond Cole was involved in that. So even if Focus Pro agrees with my ranking, I'm sure Diego was going to be waiting a little longer for a title shot, as we had to clear up this Tyree Taylor, Mani Ariez, and Desmond Cole mess. But Diego Alvarez, I assumed that this match was going to be one that Alvarez would dominate. It was the opening match. Alvarez is a mainstay in Focus Pro Wrestling. But I was wrong. I mean, Diego Alvarez ended up winning the match. But not without some effort. Seabass Finn is a guy who's just gotten on my radar. I had never seen him wrestle before in my entire life. And then this past weekend, I saw him at the Limitless Rumble. and now at Focus Pro, and I've been very impressed with his matches. He puts on a really good match. Um, the guy who shows up with the Bass Pro Shop type logo, talking about being a sea bass, you'd expect to be an opening act, but this guy can go. In this particular match, though, Diego Alvarez did end up getting the win. He was accompanied by Lex Lozano, who tried to interfere in the match, but Seabass Finn turned the tables on him and ended up getting Lex Lozano ejected. Diego Alvarez lost his mind. Moments later, Seabass goes for a springboard lariat. Diego ducks, uses a backslide to pin Seabass, and then puts his feet on the ropes for a little extra leverage, little extra insurance, and Diego Alvarez is your winner. Will Diego Alvarez get his title shot at Mani Ariez next show? I guess we'll have to wait to find out. In the second match of this show, we had the Hard Work Heroes, who are the brand new Focus Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions. They are also the inaugural Focus Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions. They just won those belts at the last show, and they are here defending them against two members of the Delta House, Dante Drago and Nick Robles, who have little, if any, prior history here in Focus Pro, but they tried their best to make history on this night. They had the Hard Work Heroes doing a lot of hard work to try to defend those titles. Midway through the match, when Delta House realizes they're in trouble, they started pretending to offer Barnaby Combs a spot in Delta House, getting him to flip on his partner, Aaron Kademia, but he definitely didn't do it. They tossed Nick Robles out of the ring, leaving Drago with Barnaby and Aaron Kademia. They go to hit a side Russian leg sweep combo finisher, but Drago escapes, pushes Barnaby in front of him, so Kademia almost collides with Barnaby, but they don't. Barnaby in the melee ends up getting thrown out. Delta House grabs a cowbell, and they try to hit Aaron Kademia with it. Aaron Kademia ducks. Hard Work Heroes, Barnaby Combs returns. Hard Work Heroes hit the heart attack and finally put away the Delta House. I hope we see more of Delta House in Focus Pro, because they're really impressive and they're really great heels. Hard Work Heroes are a cool team. I thought they were in trouble in this match. I wondered if maybe their inaugural win was going to be just that and they would turn it over on their first defense, but no, very impressive, not just in the way that they defended the belts, but the way they came back and managed to fight back for the win. I look forward to whoever's next for Hard Work Heroes. Next up, Kennedy Hardcastle taking on Austin Luke. Now, Kennedy Hardcastle is another mainstay in Focus Pro. She's had matches, tons of matches here. And Austin Luke is someone a lot of folks in the indies may recognize, but maybe not so much Focus Pro fans. But Austin Luke is a guy who can definitely go in the ring, and this match jumped out to me as one that might be worth watching, and it turns out it was. Late in the match, Austin Luke goes for a frog splash off the top rope, but misses. Kennedy Hardcastle rebounds, returns fire with a Shining Wizard for a near fall. Then Kennedy hits a Poison Rana that turned into a crossface submission. Austin Luke managed to wriggle out of that. Then all of a sudden, Austin is up. He hits his version of the GTS, which I believe they said was called the GFC. And all of a sudden, Austin Luke wins. This is his third time here. He wins again. He will climb into the Indie Wrestling Experience Focus Pro Wrestling Rankings this month coming up. And I'm very curious to see how far he will climb, because he is very impressive. Another guy who is also very impressive is Leo Sparrow, who is your Victory Pro Wrestling heavyweight champion currently, and ranked in the top 15 of our Indie Wrestling Experience overall men's rankings. He was taking on Stan Styles, who is one of my favorites. I have followed Stan since he was, I followed Stan through his Intergender Bonanza promotion, and I've covered a few of their shows, which, as you can tell, is mostly intergender matches. And I've also seen Stan wrestle at various other places like Titan Championship Wrestling and Assault Wrestling Alliance here in Maryland. But here at Focus Pro, he's here at Focus Pro pretty regularly as well. He's ranked number 4 in our rankings currently, to the number 4 contender to the Focus Pro champion, Mani Ariez. In this match, Leo Sparrow showed up wrapped completely in saran wrap. The commentators made a point to highlight how that would be very difficult for Stan Styles to get a grip on Leo Sparrow at any point, but also Stan Styles is known for using the whipped cream. He's part of the Creamy World Order in Intergender Bonanza. He always has a can of whipped cream with him, and he will hit you with that whipped cream stunner. So, will the whipped cream and the saran wrap play a factor in this match? Goodness gracious. So, towards the end of the match here, Leo Sparrow goes for a top rope moonsault but misses. Stan Styles jumps up, does a DX crotch chop, and goes for a Triple H pedigree for a near fall. When that didn't get the fall, obviously, Stan went and grabbed his bottle of whipped cream, looking for that whipped cream stunner. As Stan charged, though, Leo Sparrow pushed the ref in front of Stan, and Stan sprays whipped cream in the mouth of the referee, which then prompted Stan to worry that the referee might be choking, so he turns the referee around and gives him the Heimlich maneuver. I think it was the Heimlich maneuver. Either way, once Stan was finished with the referee, dropped him to the mat, he turned around. Leo Sparrow hits him with the whipped cream bottle out of the view of the referee, then hits the Impaler DDT in full view of the referee and takes home the win. This is Leo's second time here at Focus Pro. He is very impressive. I hope the fans at Focus Pro enjoy having him around, and I hope to see him here at Focus Pro again. The next match was 2 guys I had not seen before, and by my count, neither one of them had been at Focus Pro Wrestling before. This is DJ Powers and A-Game Alexander. Both of these men were very impressive in their first showing. At the end of the match, A-Grade grabs a single leg crab, which didn't strike me as a match-ending submission, but then he yanked that single leg straight up in the air and pulled DJ Powers almost vertical until he was forced to submit. It was a pretty impressive ending. A-Game Alexander is somebody that I'm going to have my eye on for sure. Next up, Brian Bayside, another Focus Pro mainstay, another one of my favorites. He's just absolutely a riot, taking on somebody most people here know, most of you guys listening know, and that is the world famous CB Cheeseburger, former Ring of Honor star Cheeseburger. He's been touring the indie circuit for a while, since he left Ring of Honor, and he's been putting on some great matches. I saw Cheeseburger most recently at EWA Pro Wrestling in Baltimore, and he put on a great show that night against Edwin von Scharf. But Cheeseburger's always great in the ring. He's always fun to have around, and this match was no different. He did make a mistake early in this match, though, as Cheeseburger, for some reason, decided he wanted to body slam Brian Bayside, who must be north of 350 pounds. The crowd laughed at Cheeseburger. Bayside walked Cheeseburger through some breathing exercises after he failed to lift Bayside even up a tiny bit. Bayside does some breathing exercises. Then CB does a few push-ups, circles the ring, and he's determined to try again. CB re-engages, starts to lift Bayside, and Brian falls right on top of him like Andre the Giant falling on Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 3. Flattened Cheeseburger. I was surprised Cheeseburger even came back from it. Towards the end of the match, though, Cheeseburger was going for his show-high palm strike and started to charge from the corner, but Bayside got his elbow up. Then he charged again. Bayside gets another elbow up. Third time, Cheeseburger convinces the referee to whip him into Bayside, thinking maybe this is the way to get it right. I'm not really sure. But the ref, Brendan Paul, does whip CB into the corner. Bayside gets another elbow up again, which causes CB to turn around and get furious at Brendan Paul, the referee. They start arguing. Next thing you know, Bayside calls for the bell like he's the ref, and we got a match going between CB and Brendan Paul. Oh, it was just absolutely fantastic. But as this match starts, the referee picks Cheeseburger up and slams him, then covers him for a near fall. Luckily for everyone, that was the end of the referee's involvement in that match, and quickly CB and Brian Bayside locked up, but not for much longer. As CB turned his attention back to Brian Bayside, he charged, but Brian rolled him up for a near fall. Then Bayside jumped up, shows his tummy, and I guess indicates that the end is near. Bayside pulls the tummy out, ready to finish off CB, but CB reverses, hits the Showtie palm strike, and it is over. Cheeseburger wins. No, Brian Bayside put in a great effort. He is one of the best. Really fun match, and Brian Bayside's a guy that you definitely want to check out because he just makes every match so fun. Next up, we had Gabriel Sky taking on TJ Crawford. And this is another group of guys that I'd not seen at Focus Pro. Sky had been at Focus Pro back in July when he challenged Tyree Taylor unsuccessfully for the Focus Pro Championship. This was his first match back and his first non-title match in Focus Pro. TJ Crawford's a guy I don't believe had, no, he had been here before, but he lost to Kaya McKenna back in October on his debut in Focus Pro Wrestling. His fortunes would fare different this evening, though, as at the end of the match, TJ Crawford is on the top rope looking to powerbomb Gabriel Sky from the top, but Gabriel escapes. TJ jumps sideways looking to springboard off of the middle of the ropes from the top of the turnbuckle. Hard to explain. But when TJ springboarded off the middle rope, Sky reversed and hit a spinning back fist. Then TJ hit a spinning heel kick, falls on top of Gabriel Sky and picks up the win, but he essentially passed out on top of Gabriel Sky. It was a really fun match. I didn't talk about it in detail, but it's certainly worth going to watch. As Gabriel Sky, many of you have seen around, I'm sure. He's also a great performer, and this match was really good. It just wasn't the focus of the night. Next up, the last match before our main event saw Lucas Chase take on Milo Mira. Lucas Chase has been to Focus Pro a couple of times. I personally, though, have seen Milo Mira 3 times this past weekend. Milo and his pogo stick. I saw him at Rad Pro Wrestling under a 90s-based pseudonym. Then I saw him in the Limitless Rumble, also this past weekend. Milo does some really cool stuff with that pogo stick. He doesn't just pogo around the ring. He pogos from the floor into the ring, and he also does some cool moves and flips and spin kicks off of the pogo, which are really interesting to watch. My question here was, would the pogo stick get involved? At the end of this match, at the end of this match, Milo does go get the pogo stick. He tries to pogo into the ring, but Lucas Chase hits him with a stunner as he leaps off the pogo stick into the ring. Mira rolls into the ring. Lucas goes up and over on a corner whip, then hits a lariat that spins Milo in midair, and Lucas Chase is your winner. Lucas Chase is another guy who's impressive. He's only been at Focus Pro a few times, but he will be in my rankings this weekend, or this coming month for sure. And I hope to see him at Focus Pro's next show, which is February 15th. Painted Love. It will be on IWTV. Check out Focus Pro's social media. I know they've got a lot of information about it there on their Facebook page, Focus Pro Wrestling. But before we get to that, the final match, the headline, the main event, was Mani Ariez defending his newly won Focus Pro title against Desmond Cole. The fans seemed sort of split in this match. There were a lot of loud chants for the Big Boofa, Desmond Cole. He is certainly a crowd favorite. Desmond lost to Tyree, as I said earlier, at the last show. And then right after that, Mani cashed in his contract on Tyree Taylor and won the Focus Pro title. So now Desmond clearly wants his shot, right? So Desmond, late in the match, Desmond hits an Uranagi for a near fall. Both men rise to their feet. Mani Ariez and Desmond Cole start exchanging slaps. Then Mani Ariez comes off the ropes. Desmond hits an arm drag that he holds onto the arm and sort of rolls into an Oklahoma roll style pin. Mani rolls through He kicks out of that, then rolls through for his own version of a pin that gets a near fall on Desmond. Desmond is up first, goes for another Oklahoma roll, but Manny holds tight, doesn't let him roll all the way across, keeps Desmond on his back, and gets the quick pin and the victory. Mani Ariez' first title defense for Focus Pro Wrestling is in the books. Who will his next challenger be? Check out Focus Pro Wrestling February 15th. Tainted Love on IWTV. Promise you will not be disappointed. Next up, we have a little segment that we are calling hashtag and new, where we discuss and congratulate many, certainly not all, but many of the brand new champions crowned in the independent wrestling circuit this past weekend. I want to start with, as you know, MLW, NWA, I consider those to be sort of in between. They're not indies, they're not big time, but they have a lot of indie talent. And I want to start by highlighting one of the matches that they had this past weekend with Janai Kai defending the featherweight championship, the MLW Featherweight Championship against Delmi Exo. That was at Kings of Colosseum this past, what is that, Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, this past Saturday. And this was a rematch. Well, it's not just the first rematch, it's many rematches. They've battled several times. Delmi Exo was your MLW Featherweight Champion for 191 days. But lost the title on October 14th, 2023 to Janai Kai. If any of you guys have seen Janai, I saw Janai at MLW a couple of times. I also saw Janai at Terminus in Atlanta in 2022. Just a hard-hitting, martial arts-inspired sort of presentation and her technical ability. She puts on great matches. This was no different. She and Delmi have gone at it 4 times since Janai won the featherweight title from Delmi in October 23. They had a triple threat rematch. There was a fatal 4-way at MLW Fury Road. And then in the last few months, on June at Battle Riot 6, Delmi Exo lost clean to Janai Kai. Then in September, Janai defeated Delmi in just under 5 minutes in a Taekwondo rules match. So Janai has spent the better part of the past year getting the best of Delmi Exo, but setting this title up as one more rematch, it just felt like something was coming, and it certainly did. They brawled outside the ring. They brawled inside the ring, and then they spilled outside the ring. Janai took charge outside the ring and then started taunting the crowd as if she had already won. When they go back in the ring, Janai is still in charge, and at one point she twists Delmi Exo's ponytail several times and then held on to it and hit a side kick. Soon after that, Janai would get a near fall, and she would escape a choke, and then she would hit a near fall, and then she sat on top of Delmi Exo and started ripping her hair out. She held clumps of Delmi Exo's hair up for the crowd, and it seemed like Janai was in firm control. But just at that time, Delmi Exo hulks up out of anger, hits a super kick and a fisherman's suplex with a cradle for a near fall. Then the Delmi driver for another near fall. At this point, you're wondering, what is it going to take to put Janai Kai away? And as you're thinking that, Janai counters, hits several knee strikes off of a failed Delmi driver, a second attempt at a failed Delmi driver, then does a takeover and hits a spin kick for a near fall. And just as it looked like Janai Kai was turning the tide and putting things away, she grabbed the demon clutch. And right before Delmi Exo submitted, she pulled a snapmare to get Janai Kai, or to get out of the hold and to get Janai Kai on the mat. Quickly picked Janai Kai up, hit the Delmi driver again, made the cover, and we have a new MLW Featherweight Champion. This was a featherweight title versus hair match. Luckily, the only hair we saw was Delmi Exo losing some in clumps that Janai Kai ripped out. She is now your 2-time MLW Featherweight Champion. Congratulations to Delmi Exo. Delmi and her sister Ashley Vox are mainstays of the East Coast independent scene. I just saw them wrestling, I believe, at Limitless Wrestling this past weekend. They're fantastic. They're actually feuding in Limitless, which is really fun to see these two sisters go at it. I highly recommend you check Limitless Wrestling out. So here are the rest of the and new champions for the week. Let's congratulate them, starting with the other title change that happened at MLW this past Saturday, as Matt Riddle defeated Satoshi Kojima and became your new MLW World Champion. At Prestige Wrestling over the weekend, a big time favorite of the indie wrestling experience, Amira, who is your number one ranked indie wrestling intergender wrestler, and her tag team partner Jaden won the tag team titles of Prestige Wrestling from Judas Icarus and Travis Williams. At Full Impact Pro down in Florida, there were two title changes this weekend. The Metro Brothers won the tag team titles from Annihilation, and Stevie Frick became your new Florida Heritage Champion, defeating Sideshow. The Laredo Wrestling Alliance Rise Championship was decided, changed hands at Ace Pro Wrestling's Dungeon at an event called That One Night 2, The Return. Rodzilla defeated Stud Stash. He is your new Laredo Rise champion. Any of you who follow WoW superheroes on YouTube or on your local TV, the episode that aired this past weekend, the Classmaster won a battle royal to become the new WoW champion, taking the title. The previous champion, the Beast, had vacated the title, I believe, due to injury a couple of months ago. But this leads to an event. So WoW is interesting because WoW has a bunch of they do a TV taping and they film weeks and weeks and weeks of TV at a time. That was this past taping was August 3rd. But then on September 28th, they had an event where Tormenta was their champion and she defeated the Classmaster. I'm guessing TV is leading there and we will get Tormenta as champion soon, but honestly, I don't know. For now, as far as TV is concerned, the Classmaster, your new WoW Superheroes champion. At Primo's Premier Pro Wrestling, Mondo Romero defeated Caleb Crush at Frank's Winter Beach Party 2025 to become the Primo's champion. Ranch hand Sean Carlson, who is another indie wrestling experience favorite, the 1WC champion currently, I think in his second reign. He won the UWC United States title from Samael Harris over the weekend. At Summit Pro Wrestling, the Matt Daddies, Jordan Dye and Sage Phillips, won the tag titles, the vacant tag titles in a 5-team gauntlet match. Casey Vi won the Establishment Executive title from Aaron Nova in a match that is available on Facebook. I watched it this morning. It's a fun match. Check out the Establishment's Facebook page, and you will see Rafael Delgado coming in and turning on the champion, facilitating that title change. So where do Rafael Delgado, Casey Vi, and Aaron Nova go from here? Stay tuned to the Establishment Wrestling for that. At Brew City Wrestling this past weekend, there were two title changes. Gunnar Wicks lost the Elks Lodge 400 title to Yeti Henderson. Yeti Henderson is a blast. His gimmick is fun. His matches are great, and he is surprisingly good in the ring. I think the gimmick is what makes you forget that, but he's really, really good in the ring. I saw him take on Joey Jet Avalon at RPW, and he's just fantastic. Congratulations to him. Also at Brew City Wrestling, Raven Radix became your new women's champion, defeating Aesop Mitchell in a match that had special guest referee, former AEW Melanie Cruz. At EPW Wrestling this past weekend, Twins of Salem defeated the Initiative to become the tag team champions. On that same show, Marco Harris won a triple threat match against Brandon Savage and Dorian Bain to become the EPW champion. At ICW, at the ICW Insane Rumble, Jack Sirius won the Midwest title from Gunnar Wicks. Wow, it's a bad weekend for Gunnar Wicks. He lost two titles in 2 days. But anyway, Jack Sirius is your new ICW Midwest champion, defeating Gunnar Wicks, Ben Evanson, and Sensei Storm in a fatal four-way match. At that same event, Tau TAU won the ICW tag team titles from Oso Turco and Armando Alvarez. At Voltage Wrestling, another indie wrestling experience favorite, Facade, went down to defeat this past Thursday, I believe it was, as Voltage crowned a new grand champion in TJ Sykes. The word is that there was a heel turn on the part of TJ Sykes. It sounds like he might have joined up with the Evil Andino and turned his back on the fans. They may be asking, why TJ? Why? I got to imagine that will be answered in the coming weeks. At West Coast Pro Wrestling, only the strong survive. Kevin Blackwood, who many of you indie wrestling experience or many indie wrestling fans know, as he's been all over the place, and it's just a fantastic, fantastic performance. He defeated Titus Alexander to become the West Coast Pro Champion. And finally, I want to congratulations to all of the wrestlers that I've just named, but also congratulations to Amara Void. This weekend, she won the WDWA, the World Domination Wrestling Alliance in West Virginia. She won their Rumble at an all-women's show to win the vacant WDWA. Man, that's tough to say. WDWA Women's Champion. We mentioned Amara last week on the show, or the week before. Now I'm losing track. Anyway, from MCW Seasons Beatings, she was part of the stable with Clay Jacobs and AK Bain that turned on the Zukos and will almost certainly be challenging them for the MCW tag titles. I got to imagine Amara Void is on her way to challenging Gia Scott once, if not multiple times, until she gets the MCW women's title as well. She's definitely been improving. I've seen her show up for the last couple of years, getting better and better and better. And who knows, maybe soon she will be not just a one-time, maybe she won't just be Amara one belt, she'll be Amara two belts. Only time will tell. Again, congratulations to all of the new champions from this past weekend. Good luck in your title reigns. Now, we still have Rich Buchholtz coming up. He is going to update us on RPW Redemption, RPW Homecoming, and RPW Destiny. But before we get to that, I want to make my YouTube recommendation of the week. As you know, we just started recently doing this here on the Indie Wrestling Experience. I am big on helping or trying to help people find wrestling where maybe they had not seen it before or they didn't know it existed. YouTube is one of those places where content seems to get lost a lot of times. The views are very low on a lot of these things. And there's some really great wrestling out there. So as a wrestling fan, if you're looking for great wrestling, you got your hook up here at Indie Wrestling Experience, because each week we will recommend at least one YouTube show for you to check out. This week, my recommendation is Fourth Rope Wrestling's Heels Have Eyes 3. Took place on November 2nd, 2024. But Fourth Rope Wrestling uploaded it to their YouTube channel this past week. If you go to their YouTube channel, it is very easy to find. It is the only video on there. But boy, is it fantastic. This card is just nuts. Let me run down this for you. The show opens. Well, first of all, you've got MVP, who's the commissioner of Fourth Rope Wrestling. He cuts a promo to start and talks about his vision for a hip hop and wrestling fusion that actually means something happening here in this building for this event on that night. Matthew Raywalt and Kaz are on commentary, and the show starts with a GCW tag team title match. Those of you who watch GCW certainly know Violence is Forever, Dominic Guarini and Kevin Koo. They defend the titles against the new guys, Jake Bosch and Scott Stanley. Like I said, if you haven't seen Violence Forever, they are legit. They're a lot of fun to watch, and this match is really a really good opener. Next up, we have Real One, who you all used to know as Enzo Amore, taking on Cha-Cha Charlie, who is someone I know very well. I don't know how well all of you know him. I know him from CCW, Coastal Championship Wrestling in South Florida. He is their former champion and current Tennessee champion, I believe. When he puts that hat on and hits the Mangu Splash, you are done. His matches are fun. He dances. He has fun. But he's also a championship level wrestler. Well worth your time to check him out. And any of you who've seen Enzo, you know Enzo's shtick. Enzo is Enzo. At this show, I won't spoil the match, but he cuts a promo that's super fun, but then at the end, I can't understand why he said it, but he said something about, he asked the crowd, does a bear shit in the woods? And they said, yeah. And he goes, no, a Chicago bear shits the bed. I don't know why the Chicago Bears came up, unless that was just cheap anti-Chicago heat. But it was a funny line nonetheless. The match is really good as well. After that, we've got Mike Santana taking on the aforementioned Kevin Blackwood. The announcers make a point to say that Blackwood is one of the best indie guys today. This match showcases him for sure. I said it earlier. Many of you might be saying it. Kevin Blackwood is fantastic. And you guys know Mike Santana from AEW, from TNA, LAX, Santana and Ortiz. Mike Santana is great. This match is fantastic. Next, we have a tag team match. Jocelyn Navarro and Masha Slamovich taking on Alexis Littlefoot and Jordan Grace. If you're a wrestling fan, you almost certainly by this point know what you get from Masha Slamovich, who is the current TNA Impact Knockouts champion, as well as Jordan Grace, whom she defeated for that title. I don't know how many of you know about Jocelyn Navarro and Alexis Littlefoot. Jocelyn Navarro is fantastic. She's the former Mega Championship Wrestling heavyweight champion in an intergender promotion. She's also the two-time Divine Pro Women's champion, and she handles herself in the ring. She's really good in this match as well. Alexis Littlefoot, on the other hand, is someone I did not know before. She's very impressive in this match, but I found out this is only her third year as a pro wrestler. She was trained at Legends Pro Wrestling Academy by Larry D and Max Sled. She's been in a feud with Marty Bell for the Emerge Women's Championship for several months. So you know she can go in the ring. And Marty Bell's a hell of a competitor. I bet you those matches are really good. Alexis was impressive in this match, and I think her trajectory is nothing but upwards. Three more matches to go. Joe Hendry versus AJ Francis reignite their feud from TNA. Before the match, Joe Hendry takes takes a shot at rapping, which is certainly interesting. Next up, the Fourth Row Heavyweight Championship, which is vacant at this point, is contested between Moose and Zilla Fatu. Rich Buchholtz will come on in a minute and have plenty to say about Zilla Fatu. As the match gets going, Moose tells the crowd that this dude is a rookie, which means you know Zilla's going to rebound, and you know he's going to rebound in impressive fashion. If you guys have not seen Zilla Fatu, please, I recommend you do see him at indie prices now while you can, because you will be paying WWE Bloodline prices to see him before you know it. I'm not going to spoil the match, but Zilla hits that Umaga pop-up Samoan drop on Moose at one point, the massive Moose. It's freaking awesome. And finally, a steel-praying steel cage match between NWA's Joe Alonzo and John Wayne Murdoch. They go about a half an hour in this match. It is brutal, well worth watching, well worth the price of admission, which for you all is free. This show is on YouTube. Again, remember, it's on the Fourth Rope Wrestling or Fourth Rope Promotions YouTube page. It is the only video on that page. Check them out. Give them a follow. Give this event a like once you get done watching it, because I guarantee you. And now, without further ado, welcome back to the show, Rich Buchholtz, who is here to give us our final updates on RPW Raging Pro Wrestling's Redemption that is coming on January 25th. He's also going to talk about Destiny and Homecoming, which are coming up on September 27th and May 31st, respectively. We'll see what's going on. So, Rich, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
All right. So, Redemption is now 12 days away. You ready?
I'm getting there. It's been quite a long journey as far as just a lot of planning for it, and then a couple hiccups here and there that I'm sure we'll be going through in a couple minutes. So,
right. Now, I know we talked about one of those hiccups a minute ago off the air, and we are going to talk about that moving forward. But are there any what other snafus have there been, or other issues have there been? Is this you've been trying to get this show across the finish line?
it's just a matter of logistics, making sure all the hotels are booked, airfare, all that stuff.
Right.
We run our company runs with a lot of people that aren't from the area, so there's a lot of headaches that we add to our product that some don't have.
Right. What do you mean by that? Because you got guys coming in, so the travel contingencies are a bigger issue for you than some others, or something else.
Yeah, so like a lot of our people are all over the United States, and then we have people driving from St. Louis or Chicago or whatever the case may be. So like you just gotta worry about breakdowns and stuff like that.
Right. Right. Planes or cars, right?
Correct.
Um, so what do you do? I mean, we've talked about before about, you know, how you bring guys in. You like to think of yourself as the AAA uh,
Mhm.
of wrestling, and you bring in guys who you think a lot of guys are people. I shouldn't say guys anymore, but a lot of people who you think are, ready for that next step. People who are established in the independent circuit and who may be ready to take that next step. Um, we talked Zilla Fatu is a great example, although he's not been around very long. Clearly, we talked about this a minute ago before you were on, Rich. He was at a show where he won the Fourth Rope Productions heavyweight title in a match against Moose, and
Yep.
I said that he was. I said what I said about to him at that point was see him now at indie prices while you can, because it will not be long before you're paying bloodline prices to see this guy. You agree?
I would agree 100%. I would say probably late summer to early next year, he will be in WWE
Right. And that's
on
another.
some level. Probably, I guess it'll be NXT, but
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we talked about before. Those are the contingencies that you have to be prepared for when you're dealing with talent who could get called up to NXT, AEW, or whatever at any time. Um, are there
yep.
do you have are there any? Well, let me ask you this: how is everything setting up for Parker Boudreaux and Danhausen to show up at this show? Everything going all right?
Yep, everything's right on cue. I actually talked to Danhausen today, so
Oh,
I
good.
give him updates as far as our meeting and greets and stuff go,
Right. How is it to work with
because I get
Danhausen so far?
notifications. Oh, he's been phenomenal. He gets back to me probably within a couple hours.
Oh, nice.
So like he lives on the East Coast, but like he usually gets back to me within probably 2 to 4 hours.
Right. Now he's not performed for you before.
He is not. We
Um,
tried to get him in last November, but he was booked for GCW.
Right. So let's start with that match. Let's run down this redemption card. I think we talked about 7 or 8 matches that are on the card and one that may be in some limbo here. I'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about Danhausen and Brick McCarthy versus JDX, Miguel Allmoney, and Rampage Santana. Without giving anything away as the booker, how do you see that match shaking out? What do you see that looking like?
I I could see it very similar to The Rock and um, Triple H teaming up against the NWO back like WrestleMania 18 storyline wise. Like Miguel, Rampage, and JDX have all teamed together, so there's more chemistry there. Where Brick and Danhausen have not.
Right.
So it's going to be a treat. Like Brick is a champion, and Danhausen is obviously from Ring of Honor and works for AEW. So there's definitely star power there.
Yeah, absolutely. And at any moment, Danhausen can put a curse on anyone. So you never know how,
Yep.
how that might turn out. Um, Let me see what else. So Stacy Shadows versus Casey Lennox is another match that we've talked about a couple of times on here, and you told us that this match is there's going to be a rematch in this feud, no matter what. They've already had the one match at least recently at Envision, and that was won by Casey Lennox. We don't know what's going to happen here, but the feud is going to progress to a steel cage match in May. So before we get to May, how do you see this one shaking out?
This one's pretty much just kind of the middle match of there's going to be a match free. They already were told this. And that's one of the things of RPW is we run different cities. So like we have to advertise really far out because people from Opaka may not come to Manitowoc or vice versa or come to Appleton. Like they're about 30 to 40 miles apart. Some of them are like 50 to 60 miles apart. So we have to kind of advertise really far out. That's why we told them both there's going to be a third match regardless of the outcome.
Right. And is that something that do you think other promotions who run shows sort of far apart as yours, do you think they operate under that same? Is that something that you kind of have to do when you're running shows that far apart that are, when I say far apart, I mean in time, but then also in distance? Does that just come with the territory?
I guess it depends on how far out you book. We do it that way, but like most people have like a whole agenda of chapter 1 through chapter 8. I try to do chapter 1, chapter 2, and we'll figure it out from there
Mhm.
because there's so many different elements where I could get a call next week going, this person got signed to developmental.
Right. When you, and I know we've covered this, we've been talking about it on and off for a couple of weeks, but so when you deal with somebody like that who could get called up, on this show you've got Parker
Yep.
Boudreau and you've got Danhausen. Obviously, Danhausen's not going to get called up anywhere, but I mean called back. Parker Boudreau could get signed somewhere. Are those guys that you had contingencies in place with from the outset because of that? Like specific contingencies?
Um, Pretty much I'm just going off of their word. Like, I mean, truthfully speaking, Danhausen could get pulled if Ring of Honor needs him for an event. But I mean, he's working in Chicago the night before, so I highly doubt it, but anything's possible.
Right.
We
We
just
talk.
kind of oh, keep going.
No, I was gonna do. You finish actually.
Well, I was just gonna say like we just go off of their word, and so far we've been pretty lucky where we've never had a cancellation like the day before or anything like that for marquee names. So like we've been very lucky.
Right. I guess that's kind of what I was getting at the last minute sort of marquee name substitution, but you haven't had that problem yet.
We have not,
But we talked
and those
before.
substitutions are very difficult.
Right, right. But we talked before though, you kind of have some guys that you kind of keep a not honestly keep around, that sounds bad, but I mean that you kind of have close to the vest for those kind of
Yep,
contingencies. You got some guys in place for this show?
I do.
Okay. Um, another women's match that caught my attention. Well, the only other women's match on the card that caught my attention, but that's because I'm a Miss a Kate mark. I've been a Miss a Kate mark ever since I saw her do a Canadian destroyer off the ramp at a freelance wrestling show. Uh, and
Okay.
she's been on my radar since then. I think she's fantastic. But I also saw Lily Ruiz at Envision, and she and Maggie Lee not only put on a decent match, but they improvised very well in light of the Jordan Blue injury mid-match, right?
Correct. They called like that was 100% um shifting gears during that match.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jordan got hurt very early on,
Right. And I remember seeing her
so like
sitting
they
down.
kind of
Sorry, I think we got a little bit of a delay this time. Rich, I apologize for jumping in front of you.
you're good.
I was gonna say though that oh, so that brought up an interesting question because you mentioned them kind of doing it on the fly in the ring. When when
Yep.
Jordan goes down, I saw a few, referees and official type people showing up and walking her to the back. But how do you communicate in that moment? How do you communicate, hey, something's up, you guys got to improvise and change this? How do you get that from the floor to the ring?
Usually that's the ref. Like the ref in the ring was the one that told our team. Like I happened to see it. Usually I'm not that close to the ring, but like it depends on where the door is as far as ticket sales go. So like I was able to see it. I'm like, she's hurt. I could just tell by the way she landed.
Hmm.
Um, that's a very dangerous move. I'm not a fan of them doing it because you don't have much room to clear when you do it.
Right. What was that move again? I don't even remember seeing it.
It was the move Sami Zayn does in the corner, except it wasn't in the corner.
Oh, that haluva
That
kick, Yakuza kick.
not the kick, but the where you pretty much hip toss somebody, but it's lower.
Oh, Okay,
So
right.
you don't want to clear.
And then she
So like
landed funny on her neck.
really small. She did.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you because we got this delay. I'm sorry about that, but go ahead. So,
Yeah, pretty much she just landed very awkwardly on her neck and her head. So like she was very lucky.
right,
She didn't clear by much. So we'll go with that.
right. And I think we talked the first time you were on because I was surprised. I didn't realize that that was a legit injury at the time. And I asked you about it, and you told me that she was really injured, and it was quite a little stinger. And that, but do you have any updates on Jordan Blue?
I do. I talked to her a couple days ago. She's doing well. It took a little bit to recover, but it definitely scared her. But like she's good to go. I just actually booked her flight last week, so she'll be in for Destiny. She'll be facing Casey Lennox for that show.
Oh, nice. And we don't know who's going to have what title then, so we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll just have to wait and see. With RPW, everything is variable change.
Absolutely. Um, so the next match I want to talk about is one that we talked about as being a last minute change, let's say. You had advertised Isaiah Moore defending the cruiserweight title against Ben Trust, but there's been some changes to that match.
There has Ben Truss contacted me last week and told me he got hurt at his work job, so he's going to be out 6 to 9 months.
Ugh.
So I don't know if he wants me to disclose his injury, but he's very upset about it. We'll go with that.
Right, I'm sure, and that's what a loss. And I don't remember if we talked about Ben Trust specifically before. Has he worked for you before?
He has. He worked for me March 16th of last year. He did a scramble match, and him and Isaiah kind of tore it up single-handedly, and they really wanted that match together. And he got hurt at work last Thursday, so he's
Mm,
pretty upset. Isaiah knows about it,
hmm
but it's one of those things where it's not meant to be right now, but hopefully in the future we can make it work.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So as far as contingencies, I know you told me off air you're not even fully set on this match, but what are your options? What are you looking at now to do with that match, at least potentially?
There's a potential of having Isaiah in like a triple threat match, making one of the matches be a triple threat match instead of singles match. We could possibly have Isaiah face somebody more local. There's a lot of options. It's just a matter of, especially in wintertime, I wait on the weather and if there's going to be cancellations the week of, because like it's way easier to get somebody that's more local to fill in
Mhm.
than it is to plan way ahead and have to adjust.
Right. So even though the show is in 2 weeks, you just heard from Ben last week, you're still saying, you know what, I'm going to keep my options open because there's still even 13 days out, as we are right now, 12 days out. There's still so many contingencies that you don't want to commit just yet. You want to see what your options are and keep them open.
Correct. I mean, because like worst case scenario, we go to 7 matches if somebody else pulls out, or we have a triple threat match. Like
Right.
there's a lot of different options.
Right. Because if somebody else pulls out, they may not have a dancing partner either. And then you've got pieces you can put
Yes.
together or rearrange somehow. Right.
Yep. I mean, I've already had it before where my second ever show, we had every match change except for 2 of them because of flights and people, um, transportation and everything else. So it's like we were literally coming up with everything on the fly for that show. That was the most stressful show I've ever had.
You said that was your second ever show?
That was my second ever show. That was Destiny 1.
Whew. Back in 21?
21, yeah, it was 12, 11, 10. Or so 12, what was it? 12, 11, and 21.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's a lot of changes. And I know actually we were talking about Isaiah Moore before because when I last saw Isaiah in at Destiny this year,
Yep,
that match was a change, last minute change too, wasn't it?
it was. Trying to. He was supposed to face TW3, right?
Yep.
Yep, TW3 ended up being sick, and we ended up just moving on and making him new champion
Right.
because
So,
he didn't for over a year
uh
because of OVW.
right. Um, I don't know if I asked you this last time, but I'll ask you this again. Was Isaiah Moore penned in to win that belt anyway?
Yes.
Ah, awesome. I asked that not because whatever. I just was impressed with the match and him. He carries himself professionally as like a character. You can tell he's been in the ring a lot, um, and he kind of knows who he is. And I think that was really impressive to me the way he stood out with his character in that match. So I think he'll be a good cruiserweight
He,
champion
he
for you.
worked, he's really good. He worked face and heel for us, where not everybody can do that, and he's done a great job at both.
Right. Um, yeah, I was impressed. I was looking forward to seeing Ben Trust, but I guess we'll have to hold off on that. At least this Isaiah Moore match for a few months.
Yep.
Um, the next match I've got on my list is one we've also talked about a bit before: Parker Boudreaux versus Garrison Creed. That match is still on, right?
It is still on. Yep.
How do you see those two styles in the ring? How do you see them going in the ring?
I think it's gonna be very physical. Where Parker is very aggressive. It looks like from what I've seen of him, and it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be very similar to Kenzilla in the aspect of Garrison Creed is the local star from Manitowoc that had some NWA and OVW and stuff, and Parker's coming off TV, so it's gonna be interesting to see how the crowd reacts to it. I guess they'd be behind Creed, but I don't know that for sure.
Right. I saw Garrison wrestle twice, and I got to imagine. Well, honestly, I got to imagine. I'll ask you, but is Garrison Creed the kind of veteran that you like having in the ring with a young guy like Parker Boudreaux, as far as just getting him through the match just in case, or do you not
I
have
think
worries about that?
I think they'll be good together. Like it'll be a good match. Like I said, it'll be very intense. They both look like they work very physical, where they lay their stuff in, and it's going to be kind of a knockout dragout would be my guess.
Right. Absolutely. Let's see. We got three more matches here that you told me about for Redemption. The next one would be Chucky Bates versus Gary J. I'm not very familiar with either one of these guys. What can you tell us about Chucky Bates?
Chucky Bates is a guy from Milwaukee. He's pretty young. He's probably my guess would be like 22, 23, somewhere in there. He's got a good following down there, so he works a lot of hardcore matches. Uh, Gary J is a very physical wrestler from the St. Louis area that works very similar style. So that one could be very similar to Parker and Garrison Creed.
Okay.
As far as that one could be like outside the ring a lot and interacting with the crowd and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Good. Um, okay. So, and then the next match we got is Jordy Lee versus Ethan Matthews. I have seen Ethan Matthews a few times for you, and we've talked about that before. But Jordy Lee, don't remember seeing specifically. Well, how do you see these two? How do you see this match shaking out?
I would see this one be very comical. A lot of spots like kind of like think like an R Truth type stuff
Hmm.
with my guess, where there's just a bunch of comedy acts in the middle, um, something to try and get the crowd going. Be my guess would be my logical guess.
Right, right. And as you said before, you stay out of a lot of the booking the matches, right? So you know some, but you don't really know all of what's going to go on in these matches even beforehand, right?
I don't. I pretty much I know the end, and that's about it.
Right. When you say Jordy Lee and Ethan Matthews will be sort of there'll be some comedy spots in it, or what? Is that Jordy? Is that Ethan? Is that both of them?
That's both of them. Like Jordy is 100% like that style, and he's like the baby face of it. Ethan's the heel of it, and Ethan does a lot of comedy stuff as well.
Hmm.
So you probably saw that in Vision, where it was more comedy based when he worked Garrison Creed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think he's the one that came to the ring with those obnoxious pit vipers on sunglasses. It was very
Yes,
obvious who the heel was.
yes, yes.
I love it. All right, very cool. The last match that I have on the card here in front of me is Shane Hills, who is a veteran and has performed for you many times,
Yep.
taking on Aaron Arsenal, who is another one I'm not that familiar with. What can you tell us about Aaron Arsenal?
Aaron Arsenal has done a phenomenal job of getting his name out there. He works in Minnesota a lot. He's from the Green Bay area. It's actually teacher versus student in this match. Shane was his trainer. So it'll be very interesting to see if the student can be a teacher or if the teacher's going to teach the student a lesson
Ooh,
because there's definitely years aside from it. Shane's been around since like 1999, I want to say.
hmm,
And Aaron Arsenal, I want to say, was like 2021, somewhere near 2020.
right.
So, but Aaron Arsenal is definitely branching out. He works for a lot of places in Minnesota. I believe he's working some in Iowa and stuff like that too. So,
Right.
Illinois.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up Aaron Arsenal and watch at least one of his matches because I'm not super familiar with him just yet. Um, but I know, like you said, Shane's the veteran. So, and if those two have a history, that'll be an interesting match with an interesting story.
Yeah.
So with Redemption coming up, that's the card that we have. Is there anything else about the card or any other details that we haven't talked about this week or in the weeks before about Redemption? Anything else you want to tell people before Redemption happens in 12 days?
The best advice I can give people is if you want to meet Danhausen, get your combos, photo ops, and autographs pre-ordered because it's actually going way quicker than most of them have. We've had a lot of orders the last couple of days, so I believe he's got a limit of 75. So get them as quick as you can. Like, I mean, if we can get more, we will, but that's what we have projected at the moment.
And they can get those, they can get tickets, and they can sign up for these meet and greet combos all on the website, right? rpwprowrestling.com.
Yes.
Um, and that show is January the 25th. What time? Doors open at?
Doors open at 5:30. Bell time is at 6 o'clock.
And it's taking place where?
It is taking place at the Big Apple Pub and Grill in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
So that's where I saw the last show. It's in the back. You got to go in that front door of the bar and then through the bar area to the back room, right?
Yep,
How has that venue
pretty
been
much
for
an
you?
indoor volleyball. It's been good. We probably draw anywhere between 250 to 350 would be a pretty good guess normally.
Mhm.
We drew a little less for Envision, but it was based on the fact that so many people were at Destiny 3 or sorry, Destiny 4 that they didn't buy for both of them because they had spent too much on Destiny 4. So
Right. Now you've run, I know you don't do it all too often, but you have run back-to-back shows on weekends before. I mean, is it typically one show sort of just outdoes the other because of fatigue or because of the stars who are at one versus the other?
so we've done two different ways. We've done it where we had a totally different card for both. And the first time we did it, they were two different cities. One was Wapaka, one was Manitowoc, and then the other one was Manitowoc, Manitowoc. When you have a double shot at the same venue, it's very hard to get the same people to buy for both
Right.
because they they want to see certain people like one or the other. And there's times where if you don't have that person at both shows, they're not going to buy the tickets.
Right. Now you mentioned that the back-to-backs in different cities. Is that now, of course, you may have a million
Yep.
things going on during show day. You may not have even noticed this, but is there crossover? Like, is there a significant amount of people that if you do a back-to-back in two different towns, there will be people at both?
We've had people at both. It it wasn't a lot, but it was some. It's probably like I don't know, probably 40 or 50 that came to both.
Out of a crowd of like 350 people or 250 people.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's a significant percentage.
it's decent.
Did you expect, was the crossover, the people going to both shows in different cities? Is that something that you thought about in planning those two? And did it work out the way you thought it would?
It did. We were very happy with the first one. That was Tessa versus Diamante versus Kiera Hogan for the second night. First night was Santana versus Vanity was one of the matches, and then I believe the main event was what was the main event? I think it was trying I'm totally drawing a blank on what the main event was. Oh, it was Heather versus Missa Kate for unifying the titles at the time. The winner would get both titles, and that was a knock drag out match where um, Missa Kate threw Heather Reckless into like goalie nets and stuff like that because it was at an ice arena. So it was very intense. That's actually on our YouTube channel.
Oh, cool. All right, I'm gonna have to check that one out. So we're talking. So we've covered Redemption. You and I have talked a few times about the other two shows coming up. Homecoming, May 31st. Destiny, September 27th. They can get tickets to that show at RPW Pro Wrestling as well. Do you have any updates for us on either of those shows?
So far, tickets are going pretty well for both. The homecoming one, there's 15 front row left, 11 second row. General admission, they can fit 800 people in there, so there's plenty of room there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Destiny, front row is 100% sold out. Second row, there's 16 left. Third row, there's 44, and the balcony, there's plenty of room. So just get your tickets in advance and save $10 per ticket.
And who, if anyone, are doing meet and greets and signings at either of these two shows, Homecoming and Destiny?
Okay, so Homecoming, Parker and Zill are both doing it. And then for Destiny, Buff Bagwell will be signing. And then I believe Ken and Silas will both be signing as well.
Oh, that's right. We haven't talked about Buff Bagwell since the last time you were on. I saw you just announce Buff Bagwell would be at Destiny September 27th. I saw you just post that recently. Did that just come together recently?
Buff Bagwell we've had for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's all set to go. I've got to figure out pricing for him.
And I was at a show. Well, I've been at two shows in the last, say, year and a half or so where Buff Bagwell was there. And both times he got involved in at least one match. I'm not going to ask you what's going to happen, but is there any chance Buff Bagwell doesn't get involved in something?
Right now, he's just scheduled to do meet and greet. So right now, he's not.
Okay. All right, very interesting. Well, listen, he's a lot of fun. Anybody who has not met Buff Bagwell at a signing or at an event, he's so humble and so great now. Not that he wasn't before. I'm just saying, like, I've only met him recently since he went through all of his troubles and gotten clean and all this kind of stuff. And he's just he has fun with his segments. He has fun with what he does in the ring, and he's a nice guy to meet and talk to. So anybody who's interested and never got a chance to meet Buff Bagwell, I definitely encourage you. RPWProWrestling.com. Get your tickets now. All right, so
Yeah,
Rich.
I mean,
Oh, good.
I was just gonna say, like, when I talked to Buff, I was very impressed. He is like very friendly. Like, you don't get that with somebody that's never met you before. He was just all about talking and stuff. I was like, wow, this is really cool for somebody that has never met me once in their life or talked to me on the phone. Like, we talked for like 10, 15 minutes. It was pretty cool.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, I look forward to that. I think that Destiny show is just so loaded.
It's a good show. I mean, having Lee on it as well as huge.
Having who? I'm sorry.
Trevor Lee, Cameron
Oh,
Grimes.
yes, absolutely. And you said you have a match already set for him for that. You told me last time, I think.
I do. I do. He is facing Hayden Backlund.
Right. Hayden's the East Coast guy. He's from New York, I think you said.
Yes, he's from Buffalo. He lives in Buffalo.
Very cool. I'm very interested to. I would love to get out there and see Destiny. I hope I can. Because that match, Buff Bag, I mean, just Ken versus Silas, goodness gracious. That card is just shaping up to be
It's
stacked.
it's stacked. We have that show has taken a lot of my time, and that's been a blessing and a curse because like you kind of look at and you go, how do you prepare for all of them when you're trying to do one at a time? But like that with the venue, we had to be very precise on what we were doing. Like they don't care who we bring in, but they want it to draw.
Right.
So like bringing in Silas was huge because of him being from the Appleton area. That should be able to bring in people that literally know him from being a child.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. And you've experienced that
So
before because I know Silas has been at your other show. So does he bring in that crowd? You've experienced him bringing in that crowd?
he's brought in, it depends on how much he plugs it, but if it's a match he's really interested in, and I can tell you he's very interested in this match, I think we'll draw very well from it.
Right. As you said before,
Like
there's
our front row's already sold out.
right. And you said there's history to this match.
There is. They've never faced each other, but they were both trained by Mike Kraus, Mike Mercury.
Mm-hmm. All right. So listen, so there it is. We've talked about Redemption. We've gotten some updates on Homecoming and Destiny, the future shows. Rich, I thank you for coming on. Unless you want to hang out with us while the next segment, we're going to preview what else is coming up in indie wrestling this weekend. You want to hang out?
Sure.
Great. All right, great. All right. So Rich is with us, and we are going to talk about what's coming up this weekend. Hopefully, it will sound a little less like me reading a list than it did last time. But I'm going to start out Friday, January 17th this week. Absolute Intense Wrestling is having an event at the Rosie at Mahal's Bowling Alley in Lakewood, Ohio. They are headlining Micro Man versus Swoggle and Effie versus Marion Fontaine. I know you know Swoggle. I've seen him at your shows. What do you think about this match with Micro Man?
I don't know much about him. Like, what are they advertising it as? What kind of match is it?
Oh, no, it's just a singles match, him and Micro Man. I don't think they've advertised it as much else.
Okay.
Do you have
I
much
didn't know
experience
if it
with
was
Micro
like a
Man?
title match. I've never met him, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. How about Effie? You ever worked with Effie or
I
ever
do know
contacted
that
Effie?
I've contacted him. It's one of those things where his character is so over the top that we have to be at a certain place to bring him in.
Mhm.
Because like a lot of players would frown upon his character. His character to me is funny, but not everybody would go with it.
Right. So you tried to bring him in before, or you're still looking for a spot?
I've, ta- I've talked to him before. Like I wrote to him and like he didn't respond to it, but I mean he's working for GCW quite a bit,
Mhm.
so he's doing good for himself.
Right, absolutely. Now, also this Friday, River City Championship Wrestling is putting on Breaking in the New Year from American Legion 52 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They are headlining Leon King versus AC Riley for the Midwest title, Albert Gray versus Peter Schwanz, and then Joey Jet Avalon having an open challenge. I know if nothing else, you're very familiar with Joey Jet Avalon.
I am. We actually train together in the dojo of pain for Mike Mercury.
Do you have any
Our,
experience or any workings with River City Championship Wrestling before?
I've talked to them before. They're nice. Like I've never really had like an actual promotion part of them, but like I know who runs them and stuff, and they've always been very good to me.
Right now, how close is? I'm going to try that again. How close is La Crosse, Wisconsin, to the area that you run?
It's probably about 3.5 hours away. It's La Crosse is right next door to Minnesota.
Oh, okay, I see. And you're on the East Coast.
Yeah, I would be like northeast Wisconsin. They'd be like way western Wisconsin.
Right. Okay. Also on Friday, Chicago Style Wrestling is holding their season premiere event at American Legion 974. one of the big matches on there is Missa Kate defending the CSW title against Amina Belmont. Have you seen Amina Belmont before?
I've talked to her before. She seems very nice. We tried getting her in as a replacement for somebody, I believe, at Division 2 last year, but she was already booked, so we couldn't use her. But like HWE used her. I've never heard anything bad from what I told. She's very good in the ring, and we'll work on trying to bring her in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other match on that card, the CSW title match, Conan Lycan versus Gringo Loco. You know either one of those guys?
I know Gringo Loco. CSW has really evolved with bringing in a lot of top tier talent within the last couple of years. Like a lot of our stuff that we do, we follow CSW and AAW.
Let's see. Moving on to Saturday, January 18th, Intense Wrestling Alliance at La Casa de IWA in Nutley, New Jersey. They have TJ Marconi versus Tahir James for the IWA title. Corey Mack versus Jaden Steele in a New York City street fight, and an open challenge by the Urban Warrior. This is a little outside of your geographical range, but you know any of those guys?
I don't. Do you know if they're all from the East Coast?
I think so. Yeah, a lot of those names I recognize as being New Jersey names from the shows I see in New Jersey. So,
okay.
And similar to that, Nickel City Wrestling is having a show at the Shawnee Volunteer Fire Department on Saturday in Sanborn, New York. That is headlined by JC Storm defending the women's title against Ava Brooks, DeLatin Soldier versus the Mad Dog for the NCW title, and Dangerous Game defending the tag team titles in a triple threat against the Wayward and Young Stallions. Next up, IWC. Oh, go ahead. Oh, you do know JC?
I know JC. Yep.
Has she worked for you before?
I believe she hasn't, but I know what she is. She's from New York, I believe.
Right. Let's see. Next up is IWC, the International Wrestling Cartel, which actually is the very first company that I ever reviewed for the Indie Wrestling Experience. The day the blog was born, I told my wife, you know what? I think I'm driving to Pennsylvania to see a show tonight. And Indie Wrestling Experience was born. This show, like the show I saw, was at Marx's Court Time in Elizabeth, Pennsylvania, which is like, it reminds me a lot of the hockey venue you were talking about. It's very wide open. It's like a big gym kind of area. And I think it's a really cool venue for wrestling. They're having their reset button Reloaded 11.0, which features the reset button. And this is essentially the reset button picks out challengers and matches at random. Early on, they are going to have a 16-bit challenge gauntlet match where it's like I said, it's a gauntlet. You can be pinned, submitted, or thrown over the top rope. And the winner gets control of the reset button for the entire night, can rearrange the championship standings, and they get a shot at any IWC title at any time, anywhere, including that night. The 4 championships that will all be decided by reset button matches. Bill Collier will defend the IWC championship. Mila Moore will defend the women's championship. Felix Cause will defend the high stakes title. And tag champs Wes Barkley and Derek Dillinger will defend the tag team titles, all against people to be determined by the reset button. On top of that, we have a determined IWC title match between WWE ID prospect Sam Holloway and the former Elias, now known as Elijah from WWE. Have you worked with Elijah before, or Elias, as he was known before?
I have not, but he just worked in Oshkosh in December for ACW Wisconsin. Shane Hills actually wrestled him for that show.
Shane Hills wrestled him on the show.
Yep.
Oh, nice. Are you familiar with any of those champions? Do you know Mila Moore?
The name sounds very familiar. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the New York, New Jersey people, they usually use people that are from that area, which they have way more options. So that's one nice thing that they have going for them, is they don't have to fly in a lot of people.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Where like the Midwest, we're flying in those people from New York and Florida and all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, I got to imagine that local, I mean, that really does play a factor in a lot of this thing. And you know what, as I travel around, you can see it. I mean, you see a lot of folks that are, I don't want to say confined to a geographic area, but who have a geographic area that they generally are found in, at least. I'm sure that
Yep,
works the same for you guys in Wisconsin.
it does. I mean, like the ones that branch themselves out the most for our area would be Joey Avalon and Sierra. They work all over. Like I think they did New York. They've done I want to say Jersey, and they do Illinois like every weekend. So like he was upset, I know, because he only had 99 matches last year, and I'm like, yeah, some people have that for their career, so you're good.
Wow, that's two every weekend.
Yes,
And he's upset.
he was upset. He wanted even 100, and he was upset he had 99.
Oh my goodness gracious. I guess I'd be upset at that too, probably. Uh, let's see. A show happening in the South Southern Fried Championship Wrestling is holding an event at the Walton Club in Monroe, Georgia this Saturday, featuring CT Keys defending the World Championship against Sal Renaro from NWA. You ever seen Sal Renaro either in NWA or anywhere else, Rich?
I have not. Where else does he work besides there? Does he work?
Gosh, I
Is
think
it just that area?
the only places I've ever seen him were NWA, and I want to feel like I saw him at an MLW show, but I can't place him on a. I mean, NWA and MLW are in that in between area where they're not really indies, but whatever. So I don't think I've seen him on an indie show myself. So I don't know where he's from.
Okay.
Anyway, also on that show is Deity versus Rose Gold versus Crystal Rose versus Nikki Heat for the women's title in a gauntlet and a 12-man tag team main event as the Sexton Alliance takes on the Crusade. Let's see here. Moving on to Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling on Saturday. They're holding a TV taping at Yorktown Body by D Gym in Yorktown, Virginia. That's going to be headlined by Brutal Bob Evans from Ring of Honor, taking on Doug Delicious, who is your Mid-Atlantic Territory Wrestling champion. Preston Quinn takes on Chase Emery for the TV title, and XLG will defend the tag titles and much more. In St. Paul, Minnesota, Pro Wrestling Battleground is having Anniversary 8 at the Blue Saloon in St. Paul. That's headlined by Josh C. versus Bill Williams for the Pro Wrestling Battleground Championship. It also features Darren Corbin versus Shane Boucher and Triangle Choke defending the tag team titles versus Tao. Darren Corbin's a guy out there from the Midwest that I see at a lot of Chicago shows. Have you had any interaction with him or booked him before?
I've worked with him in the past. He's really cool. He's got a cool gimmick. Um, Back when I worked with him, he was called the Rainbow Warrior. It was just based on people just went with it because of his red hair. I don't know.
Right.
I worked with him probably 20 years ago. Josh C is probably one of those up and comers that could get a developmental deal probably in the next year or two. He's really good.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, I'm going to check him
I've
out.
I've used Josh C a couple times. He's had a couple dark matches for AEW that I've seen.
Oh wow. Yeah, I was not aware of that at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Josh C was actually trained by Seth Rollins.
oh really? What kind of style is he? Like is he a high flyer or is he like a
Uh, Kind of a little bit of both. He can do either one as far as I know. We had him as a babyface. He's generally a heel.
Oh, okay. Let's
So
see.
like,
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say like, for us, we just go based on whatever the match is best at. It's how we do it. Like if it's got good chemistry, I don't really worry too much about who the babyface and who the heel are.
Right. And you said you booked Jossie as a babyface.
I did. He was facing Davey Vega for one, and he was facing Rampage Santana for the other.
Davey Vega's a guy I know from Freelance, I think.
I know him from AAW.
Hmm.
He might have did freelance. And
Yeah.
then Dan Housen's actually working freelance the night before our show.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
Do you know who he's facing that night?
I think he's in a world title match, but I don't know who their champion is.
I will pull that up and find out for sure. Yeah, I follow freelance. I like freelance. I like their shows. I like the intergender matches. I'm a fan of those. Where are you on those?
I'm against them, and the reason I'll explain that is I had a friend that was obviously a woman that was married to her husband, and her husband beat the crap out of her. So it's very hard for me to promote an intergender match and make it where you're pretty much trying to draw a fine line of pro wrestling in real life,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't think you're alone. I mean, I think it's a pretty decent split or a decent divide in the promoters who some are into it, they're all in. And then I think a lot of promoters have
Mhm.
concerns like you have, either through personal stories or whatever. Um,
Yeah, I don't care for it. I've had women that want to do them, and I've had women that are 100% against them.
yeah, yeah. I've even been to some intergender shows out here on the East Coast, and I won't say which shows and who, because this is just my opinion from watching in the ring. But
Yeah,
on each one of these intergender shows, there are a couple of performers who will stand out to you who never have intergender matches, even though they're on intergender shows. And I've always thought that
yeah,
they were thankful for the booking, but still not going to do an intergender match.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I
And
get it, and I get the
my
reasoning.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's I trained like originally with a woman as far as like doing some of the spots and stuff. And it's one of those things where it can be very slippery slope as far as like body slams or whatever the case may be. And you just got to be very careful. And it depends on who the person is. Like, I would say from around here, probably the best I can think of off the top of my head for intergender matches are Stacy Shadows and Sierra.
Mhm.
And then probably from Illinois would be Missa Kate. Does a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah. I see Joey Avalon and Sierra teaming up in a lot of those promotions in intergender tag matches as well.
Yeah. And like I
Uh,
said, I mean, a lot of people make it work. I just don't really care for it.
no, and that's it. I mean, that's it. I mean, I think that's, some promoters are into comedy matches, some aren't. Some are in intergender matches, some aren't. Some do death matches, others don't. I mean, it's all about what your vision is for your promotion, I got to assume.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, if you have the same vision as everybody else, what makes you stand out that makes people want to come to your show?
Agreed, 100%. Let me see. So moving on to this, let's see. Now in Savannah, Georgia, I've got Coastal Empire Wrestling holding their show called Jandemonium at the VFW Post 660 in Savannah on Saturday. Hakeem Young will defend the Coastal Championship against Cam Jackson. Shook D will be there taking on Hawk Thomas. And MLW's Alex Kane will take on Grayson Pierce.
Okay.
Um, in Everett, Washington, this is out of both of our geographical areas, but Peak Sports Entertainment is having an event called Saturday Night Hike at VFW Post 2100 in Everett, Washington, headlined by Matt Brannigan taking on Guillermo Rosas for the Dragonplex Dojo Championship. Also, Rebel Kell will face Liza Hall for the Women's Championship, and there will be a triple threat featuring Zelda Fox versus Zeb Saint One versus Austin Oso. Uh, you know about Rebel Kell?
The name sounds very familiar. Like,
Yeah,
if I'm if I remember correctly, there's a Washington promotion when they do Facebook advertising, they do national. So like, I'm checking out so much different wrestling stuff that I get a lot of their feeds on Facebook.
yeah, yeah. It all blends together.
I'm pretty sure that's the same promotion.
Yeah, well, yeah, and also I saw Rebel Kell at another promotion this weekend, which was DOA Pro Wrestling, which is also I think in Washington. That was intergender, and I can't remember who Rebel Kell was facing in that because I watched so much wrestling this weekend. But I was impressed with her. Um, so I'm definitely interested in that. And I've seen Matt Brannigan is another. So there's some intergender promotions out there in that area. There's DOA Pro Wrestling, which I think is in Washington, and then there is PAL Pro Wrestling, which is run by Brian Zane, who used to have a YouTube channel a long time ago. And they both run shows. I saw one this weekend, like I said, with Rebel Kell, but Matt Brannigan is a guy who has been battling for the PAL Pro Wrestling title against Amira. And then I also saw him do a gimmick this weekend where it wasn't Matt Brannigan, it was Matt Brannigan's clone or Matt Brannigan's stunt double that appeared, which was really funny. And because he can go in the ring, he can pull that kind of comedy off and then go right into the match. So I'm a big fan of Matt Brannigan. I don't know if you've seen him before.
I have not. Is it similar to like a Damien Sandow gimmick that he did with Miz or no?
No. When I said I really probably I think he called him his clone. Essentially, it was just Matt Brannigan, but the idea was I'm not Matt Brannigan. This is Matt Brannigan's clone. I think was just the deal. Because I don't think there was anything different to the presentation when he showed up. But this is the first time I had seen him in DOA, so I don't know. Like I said, it's so much wrestling, it's so much to keep track of. But I don't think there was any kind of like stunt double gimmick. I think I probably misspoke. Coastal Championship Wrestling in Florida is running Rumble in the Jungle 12 from the Tripping Animals Brewing Company in Doral, Florida on Saturday. World Heavyweight Champion Meadow will take on Marvin Cruz. Mickey Knuckles will take on Nikki Blackheart. And Domino will defend the Southeast Championship against Veritas. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any of these names, but I do have a question about one.
Mickey Knuckles, I believe, is a deaf women's champion somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. I saw Mickey at an ICW No Holds Barred show a year and a half ago or so, and just so much fun. Now I don't know how you are on the death matches. I'm not like death matches are not my favorite thing. I don't gravitate towards them, but I do seeing them live is an experience, usually because they encourage you to BYOB for those shows. So the fans are an experience as well. Where are you on death matches?
I'm not a fan of them, but I don't mind watching them from like the stands, but like I definitely won't promote them.
Mm-hmm.
We have a guy that promotes them in Wisconsin called Dysfunction. He does a really good job of promoting them.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, he runs a death match show, and I think it's like middle of August that draws a lot of people to it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I knew her name from.
Right. Yeah, I saw her in a death match against Casey Catal at that show, and I just remember her throwing her off the top rope through a pane of glass. It was brutal. It was brutal. Like I said, not my favorite thing to see on TV, but live
Yeah,
it's a party. It's not even so much about the death matches. To me, it's more about it's a party. It's a party for 21 and over party, which a lot of wrestling is not.
I would agree 100% on that. And it's one of those things where I would just hear about the crowd, but that's just me thinking about my liability.
Oh yeah, no, I've wondered about that myself. I mean, we've talked about the work I do during the day as a lawyer and doing insurance work a lot of times. Um, yeah, I mean, I always wonder about that if a shard of glass flings off into someone's eye, or I mean, just so many. I mean, and not only that, the death matches always spill into the crowd, so there's possibilities for anything to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like if you ever saw the show Dark Side of the Ring, there's been some good documentaries on those, and there's been matches that have been stopped because the person was bleeding profusely.
Yeah,
So like,
it's funny.
I just, oh, keep going.
No, you guys, it's funny.
Oh, it's kind of funny that like it draws a total different crowd for wrestling than like a WWE show or AEW or whatever. It's just a totally different atmosphere and totally different crowd geographic.
Yes. Yes, and there's a lot of death matches out here in the New Jersey area. New Jersey's big on death matches. And so I
Yep.
can tell you a Jersey crowd at a death match show is like something you've never seen. And I mean that in a good way. They're just off the chain.
And they're probably very upset if they don't get like the blood and guts and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. They tend to. In fact, I think Matt Tremont, who runs the H2O promotion out here, just had an event where I don't remember what he called it. It was like concrete slab match or something to that effect. But it was basically cinder blocks making up the mat, and then cinder blocks being used as weapons as well.
Okay.
Yeah. When I heard that, it was nuts. But then I saw him, Matt Tremont, on Facebook the day of, posted a video or pictures of him unloading all these cinder blocks and lining them up in a row. And I thought someone is going to die. But
That'd
they
be
got
my
it.
first guess.
Uh,
What promotion did Tessa work for?
who?
What promotion did Tessa Blanchard work for? That
Uh,
was in Jersey.
oh gosh. Just recent. You mean just recently?
Yeah, it was probably like about a year ago.
I feel like I'm remembering this. It's not coming to me. Oh, let's see.
Because it was the same person.
Oh,
It was the same
XPW.
person that ran. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, those are very violent matches and events. XPW.
And that's why I was shocked that they agreed to do it, because I was like, you can have permanent damage and that kind of stuff. So I'm like, is the risk worth the reward? To me, I will say no. To other people, they may say yes. I don't know.
Yeah, I got the impression that a lot of the guys who do the death matches are adrenaline junkies, and that they do it. It appeals to them a lot because they're adrenaline junkies. Like, I think that regular
Yeah,
wrestlers don't get
I
into that.
definitely understand it.
I'm sorry, say again.
It's one of those things where I was just gonna say it's one of those things where if you're trying to get into WWE or TNA or AEW possibly, sometimes they're gonna gravitate away from that. They're gonna pretty much typecast you into that kind of character. Like that's how Mick Foley kind of was having problems getting into WWE, because they like, oh, this guy's just, oh, he does his death matches. How are we gonna market this?
Right. And now a lot of deathmatch wrestlers may look at Mick Foley and go, "See, he did it." But to me, it's no, 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 no. Mick Foley is the rare exception.
Yes.
And it
Not every person is gonna be the same example.
right. And it's only because Mick Foley could do so many other things,
Yeah.
um, that I think a lot of these guys who do the death matches may just focus on that and they may miss it. But if you're doing the hardcore matches and you've got a unique gimmick and make yourself marketable, there's always a way to get there. But like you said, you got to make sure you don't bleed out in a match first, right?
Exactly. And that's where it's funny, because like so many of those go viral. And like a side story to that was, we actually had somebody that just went viral a couple weeks ago that randomly reached out to me, because I was telling you last time about how people randomly reach out to me, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. We actually just had Soul Taker reach out to us last week, and I
Wow.
was like, right now we're full, but I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like I just saw stuff go viral literally 2 weeks ago for his
Yeah.
character.
I haven't seen any of that stuff from 2 weeks ago. I'll have to look that up.
He's from Michigan. Like
Is
his
he really?
gimmick is very similar to the Undertaker.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, his wrestling name is Soul Taker.
I got it pulled up now. I'm going to check that out after the show because I'm very interested. Yeah, I see him here. Oh, cool. Interesting. Um, well, while we're talking about hardcore, one of the next shows on my list, actually, Ruthless Pro Wrestling is having a hardcore show called Hydra in Houston, Texas, the Houston Premier Arena. And one of the things that is interesting to me about this is that you already mentioned, I believe, where you referred to them, you didn't mention them by name, but someone on this show, and that would be Nick Gage will be taking on Tommy Vendetta. Is Nick Gage the guy you were talking about a minute ago?
I mean, it's a stereotype, yeah.
From Dark Side, I mean, from Dark Side of the Ring.
Oh yeah, yep, from Dark Side of the Ring, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't more specific. Yeah, yeah. I remember that story about Nick Gage almost bleeding out in that match from Dark Side. And when you were telling it, like
Yep.
I can't believe. I mean, not only he's almost bled out so many times, but he's in a stint in jail for armed robbery. I mean, the guy's been through it, but he is a draw. No, agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if you're running a hardcore show, that'd be probably the top person on the list.
Mm-hmm. Now on that show, I've also got Hoodfoot defending the Ruthless Pro Wrestling Championship against Killa Cash and Schlock versus Journey Fatu. We've talked about another Fatu during this show, but have you ever had any contact with Journey?
I am not. Is it cousin or what is he?
It looks like from the pictures, he looks very much like the rest of those guys, like Zilla maybe, resembles Zilla a little bit, but I don't know his specific. I don't know his connection to the family. I mean, God, you saw that damn family tree they put up before WrestleMania. I can't keep track of any of it. I'm kidding, but I don't know where Journey Fatu falls into it, but I've seen his name around a few times. I've just not seen any of his matches.
Yeah, I have not seen any of his stuff. Like we've had a lot of people from the Houston area reach out to us, but he was not one of them. Speaking of Houston, what was your thoughts on Zilla versus Booker T this past weekend?
Oh, I didn't see it. I did not see it. I saw the Zilla Moose match, but I haven't seen the Zilla Booker T match. Did you see it?
I did.
What did you think?
I personally thought Zilla show went over, but that's just my personal opinion.
Did
they did something very similar to Undertaker versus Yokozuna from 1994, except that one match where everybody came and beat up Undertaker. In this match, there was three or four people that beat up Zilla, and then Booker T pretty much pinned them afterwards.
Yeah, and I've seen there's a lot of protecting Zilla going on. From what I've seen in his matches, like all the matches that I see seem to be set up to make sure he's still in a good spot. Do you get that same impression? And did you make any adjustments for Zilla specifically?
I had a plan where he was going over. Pretty much my thought process is I want to see people go up, and later on in life, when somebody else is ready to go up, I want them to pay it back in the future. Ken was nothing but professional. He wanted Zilla to succeed, and it was a great match.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a fantastic match. One of the things I saw was like Zilla was holding one of the promotion's titles recently, and to get it off of him, I think to get it off of him, they put him in a triple threat. And I didn't see the match, but I got to imagine Zilla didn't do the job. Do you think that's common for guys like Zilla that they're not gonna? I don't know if anybody's telling them he's not going to do a job, but is Zilla just the kind of guy that you're probably not going to make do a job unless you've got something specific that you're going to do with him at this point?
I would say at this point, yes. It's one of those things where it all depends on what your future bookings are with Zilla. Like, I mean, putting him in a title match is dangerous to begin with because then you're guaranteed to bring him back if you have him win the title. And it's one of those things where unless you do a triple threat or a fatal four-way, he's going to have to get pinned or submit one way or another. So it's like you're kind of double booking yourself by doing that as a promoter.
Yeah, no, and I see that too. That's why I asked so many questions of you and other people about working with this talent that's so close, and you're the perfect guy to talk to about it because, like you said, you think of yourself as the AAA. So a lot of these guys who are on the verge come through your area. But it's interesting. It's like, how do you handle a guy like that? How do you put a title? I was surprised to see that someone put a title on him. In fact, there are two different promotions that have put their title on him. One of them being House of Glory. And I think he's still holding that belt.
And then I think he's Reality Wrestling champion. I don't know which title, but I think he's a champion there as well, unless he just lost it. But I think he's still a champion there.
Yeah, he did just lose it. And in fact, the other promotion that he is the champion for is Fourth Rope Promotions down in Georgia. We talked about earlier in this show that in the inaugural show for them, he took on a Moose for the vacant title. And
that was in Chicago, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Because I flew him to Chicago for that show, so I remember the show.
Yeah. They actually, the reason we're bringing it up here on the show this week is because each week I try to find something on YouTube that maybe people don't see. And so a lot of promotions that post things on YouTube, they do it in all sorts of different timelines, right? I mean, you post single matches. You've posted
Yep.
full events at certain points here and there, but mostly just single matches. But your timing on that had to do with your camera guy and all these other things. So the shows that get put up on YouTube, like this Heels Have Eyes 3 is the show that we talked about this week earlier before you came on. And that show's from November, but they just put it up on YouTube this week. And there's so much great wrestling on YouTube that gets put up a month late or 2 months later, a year later, um, that people don't really know about. I mean, there's just so much wrestling on YouTube.
And that's the problem that I see is like with so much stuff being on YouTube, it's like so much stuff gets lost. And that's the one thing like when Will would put on stuff for our matches in the past, it was one of those things where what do you do because it's going to get lost between A and Z
Yes.
unless you have like two stars facing each other, then it's going to go up on the grid. Otherwise, it's just another match that's on the calendar of YouTube.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, and that's one of the things when I started doing these YouTube spotlights. I said that you know the there's so much there, and if you look at the views for these shows that people are posting, they're very minimal. People are not getting
Oh,
reach out of them.
I would say probably a lot of them are under triple digits.
Yes, absolutely they are, especially the long shows, and I think that part of that speaks to our attention span as a nation. I think, but also if you're going to watch an event on YouTube, I mean, not on YouTube, but if you're going to watch a streaming event at home, you're probably thinking about that event during the week. You're probably getting ready for it for the weekend. You're probably anticipating it. And you don't get that feeling the same with a show a month later on YouTube. I think it's a lot of guys like me really who find these shows a month later on YouTube, right?
Probably. I mean, it's one of those things where they're looking for it being posted because they maybe live in New York and are doing the show in Wisconsin. Because I get people like that for us, and I'm like, at the end of the day, it's no like disrespect to anyone else. It's a matter of I want the crowd there live and in person than to watch it on YouTube. But that's just how we run.
Yes, no, absolutely. Um, All right, Rich, let me see. We're running along here. I want to cover two more shows that are coming up this weekend, and then I'm going to let you go and let everybody go. PAL Pro Wrestling, which we mentioned earlier, is holding Heal the World at World Pies in Eugene, Oregon. Amira will be defending the PAL Pro Wrestling Championship against Ethan HD. Levi Shapiro will be taking on the aforementioned Brian Zane, defending the WWW YouTube title. That's what it was. Brian Zane's channel was Wrestling with Regret. If anybody remembers that YouTube channel, that was Brian's channel. Brian is now running PAL Pro Wrestling. That's his title. And then the tag title, Most Violent, Drexel and Funny Bone will take on the Hess Clan. Let's see here. And on Sunday, January 19th, Supreme Pro Wrestling is holding their loyalty event at the Soccer World Indoor Arena in Elk Grove, California, featuring Marcus Lewis versus Chris Wilde, Mighty Myra versus Mani, and headlined by Timothy Thatcher, formerly in NXT, versus Jordan Oasis. You had any experience or any interaction with Timothy Thatcher before?
I have not. Do you know where he lives off the top of your head?
I don't actually. I have no idea where he lives because my first introduction to him was NXT.
That's the only that's the only place I've heard of him was
Yeah.
NXT.
Let me see if he's on.
I thought he was from the UK, but I could be wrong.
I think you may be right. I'm just sitting here trying to pull it up. No, he's not pulling up quickly. I'll figure it out later. I don't want to hold everybody up here, but yeah, no, I know. Well, look at this. As I pulled up his name, it looks like Timothy Thatcher versus Marcus Mathers, March 22nd for West Coast Pro Wrestling. I will get back to that later. I'm not going to get sidetracked. I think so too. I think Timothy Thatcher is British. I think he's from England. I don't know. I've seen him on a lot of cards lately headlining, so maybe he's on a tour of some kind. Is that
A lot of them are usually do a month. Usually, the people from like the UKs of the world usually come in for a month or two.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So do you
And
have any
then
experience dealing with guys like that from the UK on a tour or something?
I've had people reach out to us, but I've never booked anyone. the UK.
Is that
We had somebody that in the United States, can't try to remember, Mila Smith
uh-huh.
lived in lived in the United States for a little bit. She worked for me for Envision One, I want to say. She
Oh, cool.
faced Maserati.
Maserati's another one that I really like. I don't get to see enough of her.
She's West Coast. She lives in Vegas.
Yeah. Um, okay, well, so I think I've gone over all of everything I want to go over. I've covered all of the shows coming up this weekend, all over the country. Lots of great wrestling. Get out, find it in your area. We've just listed a bunch of really cool promotions from New Jersey to Florida to California. You got to be able to find something near you. Do it. You won't regret it. Rich, how great is independent wrestling? Tell these people who've never seen it.
Independent wrestling is so much better in the fact that you get to interact with the wrestlers. You get to kind of be one of the people that can say later on, "Hey, I got to see this person before they became someone." And a lot of tickets are usually $15 to $45 average. So like you're not going to get that going to WWE, AEW, uh, TNA possibly. So I would strongly advise going to indie wrestling. It's very cool. It's definitely something you want to check out.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm going to end today's show. I'm going to thank Rich Buchholtz both for coming on and discussing, updating us on Redemption coming up next Saturday, the 25th, uh, and also giving us an update on Homecoming, May 31st, and Destiny on September 27th. I also thank Rich for hanging around while we go over all of these upcoming shows for the weekend. Rich, thank you for coming on. I look forward to having you on again very soon. We'll talk soon. You know that.
Yep, sounds great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rich. Well, that about does it for us here on the Indie Wrestling Experience this week. We will be back next week, hopefully with a co-host. Maybe, maybe not. That got delayed just a little bit, but we will see. But we'll be back here reviewing all sorts of indie shows, talking about new champions, and directing you to where you can have the best indie wrestling experience. Don't forget to check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram. We are Indie Wrestling Experience, INDY. On Twitter, we are Indie Wrestling XP. On TikTok, we are Indie Wrestling Experience. And check out our YouTube page, which is also Indie Wrestling Experience, where you can find, among other things, all of the episodes of this podcast, along with hundreds and hundreds of live event videos that I've taken over the years. Also, if you want to have your show highlighted or mentioned, promoted on this podcast, if you would like to come on the podcast to promote your show, or anything else, any other requests that you'd like to make to Indie Wrestling Experience to be part of this podcast, please reach out to indiewrestlingexperience@gmail.com and we will get right back to you. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. See you next week.